Tebello Kutoane is an admitted attorney of the High Court whose work is aimed at informing women of their rights. She joins me in studio now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. You started off giving advice to small businesses and now that's moved more to a focus on women in particular and the law.
Correct. So I started off by providing small businesses with legal services under my company Collective Intelligence. Obviously, as I was running the company, I realized that more and more of my female clients were asking me about family law issues, and I decided to take it upon myself to then start this sister-in-law platform, which was aimed at more family law issues because I didn't want to, merge my commercial offering with my family law knowledge.
What would you say the question or the issue that women approach you about the most is?
At the moment, I would say it's definitely child maintenance, issues of divorce, especially if there was no antenuptial contract signed. A lot of people have come to me saying, this is my situation, I've been married for 10 years, whatever the case is, and I do not have an antenuptial contract, and I do not want my husband or ex-to-be to walk away with 50% of my estate. What can I do? So that has been the most popular question at the moment.
What do they do?
Well, if there was no antenuptial contract signed, unfortunately, then your ex-husband does walk away with 50% of your estate.
Okay. So Statistics South Africa is saying around over 50% of women are the ones who institute divorce proceedings. Is there a piece of advice that you can give to women, an overarching piece of advice that works when it goes into going into marriage? Obviously, you don't want to get divorced, but just in case.
But being realistic, absolutely. So realistically speaking, it is definitely always best to marry out of community of property. You should consult an attorney who will draft your ANC for you, antenuptial contract. And once you're in the marriage, and especially if you've got a relatively large estate and minor children or other dependents who you'd want to maybe inherit in your death, then you should have a will drafted.
Okay. There's about 3,000 customary marriages that Statistics South Africa says get registered every year. What advice would you give to people who are entering into customary marriages, whether they're registered or unregistered?
Okay, so registration is not tantamount to it being valid. So even in your unregistered customary marriage, you are still married. It's obviously a matter of ensuring that the requirements of a customary marriage were met when you entered into the customary marriage. And you should register it with Home Affairs within 3 months of having concluded the marriage process. If not, then you will have to, obviously provide an affidavit explaining why it's taken you longer than 3 months to register that marriage, but there's no grounds for why it shouldn't then be processed at Home Affairs after that.
Okay, so what's the process that comes to the separation of an unregistered customary marriage? Because that's an issue that a lot of people face.
Well, obviously a lot of women are, or actually a lot of people are not knowledgeable that a customary marriage should be registered. But if it's not registered, then at the moment the only legal way of actually having a divorce, of going through a divorce in your customary marriage, is through court process. So the parties would need to go to High Court, and High Court will obviously declare that there was in fact a customary marriage, and on those grounds they would like to divorce. So the decree of divorce can only be given by the High Court at the moment.
Okay. Estate planning is also very important. It's a very intimidating space for some people, especially if perhaps they don't have the means or the legal knowledge. Just explain to us how to do that.
So my understanding is that most financial houses do offer a wills drafting service. But for people who are in a position to consult an attorney, it ranges from attorney to attorney. It's about 600 to 1,000 rand, depending on, your attorney's offering. But drafting a will is fairly easy, especially a simple will where your estate is not complex and you don't have to go into drafting a trust or creating a trust under that will. The process is fairly easy, and I do know that a number of firms take part in Wills Week sometime in September, if I'm not correct, if I'm not wrong.
Why should you have a will?
The most important reason that I like to share with women who come to me, a lot of them are in a position where they are not sure if they'll be married by the time they pass on or whatever the case is. So a lot of women have come to me saying, I've got children and I do not want my husband to inherit everything. for whatever personal reasons that exist, you know. And the reason why it would be important to then have a will in place is so that you can, it's your last will and testament. You can then say, this portion of my estate should go to my children, this portion should go in a trust, which should be administered on behalf of my children until they've reached the age of majority. And, you know, having a will is also an estate planning tool. It shows you how your assets are versus your liabilities.
Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Tebello speaking to us there. She's got a company called Sister-in-Law that advises women on different legal issues facing them. It's now time for us to take a look at the market.